Life changes as you age, and so does the nature of relationships. Many people hold on to the idea that friendship is a lifelong necessity, but after 70, priorities shift. The truth is, what once served you may no longer be relevant. This isn't about isolation, it's about understanding what truly sustains you in your later years. Most friendships are circumstantial, built around work, social obligations, or shared struggles. When those circumstances disappear, so do many of the connections. What remains is something deeper, something more self-sufficient. Friendships that once felt deep and unshakable often fade into mere pleasantries as time passes. In youth, friendships are built on shared experiences, common struggles, and the excitement of discovering the world together. There is a sense of adventure, a feeling of unity in facing the unknown. But as people age, those bonds shift, sometimes weakening to the point where conversations become little more than obligatory check-ins rather than meaningful exchanges. The reality is that many friendships are circumstantial. They exist because of school, work, or shared environments that naturally encourage connection. But once those structures disappear, the effort to maintain relationships must come from a genuine place, and many people find that the connection wasn't as strong as they once believed. Without the convenience of proximity, friendships often fall apart, revealing their true nature as temporary rather than lifelong. Age also brings changing priorities. In youth, friendships often take center stage, shaping identities and influencing choices. But with time, responsibilities grow heavier. Family, health, financial concerns, and personal well-being take precedence. The energy once reserved for socializing now goes into managing the complexities of life, and many friendships fade simply because neither party has the time or capacity to invest in them the way they once did. Another unavoidable reality is that as people age, their circles grow smaller. Some friends move away, others pass on, and some drift apart due to diverging values and perspectives. The experiences that once bonded individuals together no longer apply, leaving little common ground to stand on. What was once an easy connection becomes a struggle, a forced effort rather than a natural and fulfilling relationship. Superficiality in friendships also emerges when people begin to hold back. In younger years, there is an openness, a willingness to share struggles and triumphs without reservation, but as people age, they become more selective in what they reveal. Some fear burdening others with their problems, while others assume no one truly cares to listen. This guardedness turns friendships into surface-level interactions rather than spaces for deep and honest connection. Another sign of superficial friendships is the shift in conversation topics. Deep discussions about dreams, ambitions, and personal growth are replaced by small talk about the weather, past memories, or casual observations. The relationship is no longer about growing together, but about maintaining an illusion of connection without real depth. The fewer meaningful discussions take place, the more apparent it becomes that the friendship is not what it once was. Aging also brings a greater awareness of time and how it is spent. Many people realize they no longer have the patience for meaningless interactions. They begin to see through shallow conversations and recognize which relationships add value and which ones are simply maintained out of habit. The realization that some friendships lack substance leads to a natural withdrawal, where people prefer solitude over forced social obligations. There is also an element of emotional detachment that comes with aging. People become more independent in their thoughts, less reliant on validation from others, and more focused on their own personal fulfillment. The idea of maintaining friendships for the sake of appearances loses its appeal, and many choose to focus on self-growth rather than keeping up with connections that no longer serve them. One undeniable truth is that people change over time. The values, interests, and beliefs that once aligned in youth may no longer be compatible. What once felt like an unbreakable bond now feels strained as individuals realize they no longer see the world in the same way. This divergence often results in friendships feeling forced as both parties attempt to hold on to something that no longer fits who they have become. Another contributing factor to the superficiality of friendships in old age is the lack of shared experiences. In youth, friendships are constantly reinforced through new adventures, challenges, and mutual growth, but as people age, routines become more set, new experiences become less frequent, and friendships that thrived on shared journeys begin to stagnate. Without shared experiences to sustain them, friendships become little more than occasional conversations with no real substance. Technology has also played a role in the shift towards superficial connections. Many friendships now exist primarily through text messages, social media updates, or occasional phone calls. While these methods allow people to stay in touch, they do not foster the deep in-person connections that once defined true friendship. The more people rely on digital communication, the more distant and detached friendships become, reducing them to mere exchanges of pleasantries rather than meaningful interactions. Finally, there comes a point where people accept that not all friendships are meant to last forever. The idealistic notion of lifelong friendships gives way to the understanding that relationships have seasons. Some serve a purpose for a time and naturally fade away, while only a rare few withstand the test of time. The fewer expectations one places on friendships, the less disappointment there is when they inevitably become more superficial with age. As people grow older, their priorities naturally shift, and the realization sets in that energy is a finite resource. Where once it may have been poured into social obligations, maintaining friendships, or seeking external validation, it becomes increasingly clear that the best investment of time and effort is in family and personal growth. These are the areas that provide true fulfillment, security, and a deeper sense of purpose, making them far more valuable than the fleeting nature of social interactions. Family remains one of the strongest pillars of support in later years. While friendships may come and go, family relationships often endure, rooted in shared history and unconditional bonds. Whether it's children, grandchildren, siblings, or even close relatives, nurturing these relationships offers a sense of belonging that no amount of socialization with acquaintances can replace. Investing energy in strengthening family ties leads to greater emotional stability and the assurance that one is truly valued and cared for. Another reason energy is better spent on family is the opportunity to pass down wisdom and experience. Aging brings knowledge that younger generations can benefit from, and taking the time to mentor, teach, and guide family members creates a lasting legacy. Rather than seeking connection in superficial friendships, older individuals can find deeper meaning in helping those closest to them navigate life's challenges, offering insights gained from years of experience. Beyond family, self-improvement becomes a critical focus. Aging does not mean stagnation. It is an opportunity to refine oneself, to continue growing mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Dedicating time to reading, learning new skills, engaging in meaningful hobbies, or even pursuing spiritual growth fosters a sense of purpose. The energy spent on self-improvement leads to greater confidence, resilience, and an enriched sense of self-awareness. Health, both mental and physical, demands attention in later years. Instead of expending energy on maintaining social circles that may no longer bring joy or fulfillment, focusing on personal well-being is a far more rewarding investment. Exercise, proper nutrition, mental stimulation, and emotional well-being all require effort, and prioritizing these areas leads to a higher quality of life, greater independence, and the ability to fully enjoy one's later years. Emotional stability is another key benefit of shifting focus toward family and self-improvement. Social dynamics can be unpredictable, and friendships often come with expectations, disappointments, or even emotional burdens. By directing energy inward, individuals can develop stronger emotional resilience, learning to find contentment within themselves rather than relying on external validation. This shift leads to greater peace of mind and an ability to navigate life's inevitable challenges with clarity and strength. One of the greatest rewards of focusing on self-improvement is the sense of accomplishment that comes with it. Whether it's mastering a new skill, achieving a fitness goal, deepening one's spiritual understanding, or even learning to appreciate solitude, personal growth brings a level of satisfaction that external relationships often cannot provide. The pursuit of self-betterment fosters a continuous sense of progress, ensuring that life remains fulfilling at every stage. Spending energy on self-improvement also enhances the quality of interactions with others. A person who is mentally, emotionally, and physically well is naturally more engaging, insightful, and pleasant to be around. When family sees someone actively working on bettering themselves, it serves as an inspiration and strengthens those relationships, creating an environment where meaningful interactions are valued over shallow social engagements. Another crucial reason to focus on family and self-improvement is the unpredictability of aging. Time is limited, and choosing to invest energy in the things that matter most ensures that no moments are wasted on people or situations that do not contribute to long-term well-being. The realization that every moment is precious makes it clear that deep, meaningful connections and personal fulfillment should take priority over maintaining social circles that no longer serve a purpose. Loneliness is often misunderstood as a mere absence of people, but it is far deeper than that. It is not simply the lack of company, but a state of mind, a feeling of disconnection that persists even in the presence of others. Some people are surrounded by friends and family yet feel utterly alone, while others live in solitude and experience deep contentment. The difference lies in perspective, in the way one engages with oneself and the world. The mind plays a central role in shaping emotions, and loneliness is no exception. It is not dictated by the number of people around, but by the quality of one's internal world. A person who has cultivated self-awareness, purpose, and fulfillment will rarely feel lonely, even in solitude. On the other hand, someone who depends entirely on external validation and companionship for their sense of worth will struggle with loneliness, no matter how socially active they are. Self-sufficiency is one of the strongest defenses against loneliness. When a person finds joy in their own company, engages in activities that bring meaning, and develops personal passions, they build an inner world that is rich and fulfilling. They do not rely on others to fill a void because they have nurtured a sense of wholeness within themselves. This shift in mindset transforms solitude from something to be feared into something to be embraced. Loneliness intensifies when a person disconnects from their own thoughts and emotions. Many seek constant external distractions, social media, television, mindless conversations, to avoid facing themselves. But true fulfillment comes from understanding and accepting oneself. When an individual learns to sit with their thoughts, reflect on their experiences, and cultivate a sense of inner peace, they become resilient against the emotional weight of loneliness. A crucial distinction must be made between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a feeling of emptiness, a yearning for connection that is unfulfilled. Solitude, on the other hand, is the ability to be alone without suffering from that emptiness. Solitude allows for self-reflection, creative thinking, and personal growth. Those who embrace solitude find that they do not need constant interaction to feel complete. Instead, they develop a profound sense of independence. The belief that external relationships alone can cure loneliness is flawed. While meaningful connections are valuable, they cannot replace the need for self-acceptance and emotional resilience. Relying on others for constant companionship or validation creates a fragile sense of self-worth. When relationships change or fade, as they inevitably do, those who have not built inner stability will find themselves lost, while those who have cultivated personal strength remain steady. The way a person perceives their own solitude determines whether they experience it as loneliness or as a peaceful state. Those who see solitude as an opportunity for self-discovery and growth will never truly feel alone. They learn to enjoy moments of quiet, to engage in meaningful pursuits, and to build a relationship with themselves. They do not see time spent alone as wasted, but rather as a chance to invest in their own development. Many fear being alone because they associate it with insignificance or neglect, but this is a conditioned belief rather than a universal truth. Cultures that value individualism often produce people who are comfortable with solitude, while those that emphasize constant social interaction can create a fear of being alone. Understanding that self-worth is not determined by social presence, but by one's own perception of their value, shifts the entire experience of being alone. One of the greatest strengths a person can develop is the ability to be at peace with themselves. When an individual reaches a point where they can sit in silence, enjoy their own thoughts, and engage in personal pursuits without feeling the need for external validation, they have achieved true emotional independence. This does not mean rejecting others, but rather not depending on them for happiness or fulfillment. Loneliness is often worsened by unrealistic expectations. Many believe they need a certain number of friends, a specific type of relationship, or constant social interaction to be happy. However, true contentment comes from within, not from meeting societal expectations of what a fulfilled life should look like. Learning to appreciate quality over quantity. Most people are consumed by their own struggles, worries, and daily responsibilities, leaving little room for the burdens of others. This is not necessarily due to a lack of compassion, but rather a fundamental truth about human nature. People are naturally inclined to prioritize their own survival, ambitions, and immediate concerns over the problems of others. No matter how much someone may sympathize with another's difficulties, their primary focus will almost always be on their own life. This reality explains why expecting others to consistently care about personal struggles often leads to disappointment. While friends, family, and acquaintances may express concern, their attention is temporary because they too are dealing with their own set of challenges. Everyone is fighting battles that are unseen, and no one can carry the weight of another person's problems indefinitely when they are struggling to manage their own. Understanding this concept can be both sobering and liberating. It removes the unrealistic expectation that others will be deeply invested in personal hardships and instead shifts the focus towards self-reliance. The most successful and emotionally resilient individuals do not wait for others to rescue them. They learn to navigate their struggles independently, developing the strength needed to face difficulties without constant validation or support. When a person realizes that most people are preoccupied with their own problems, they begin to take responsibility for their own emotional well-being. This means learning how to process difficulties internally, finding solutions instead of seeking sympathy, and developing a mindset that prioritizes growth over seeking external reassurance. True strength is built when a person stops depending on others to alleviate their suffering and instead focuses on personal resilience. This does not mean that human connection is unimportant. Relationships can provide support, guidance, and companionship, but they should not be relied upon as a primary source of strength. The healthiest relationships exist between individuals who are already secure in themselves, not between those who expect others to shoulder their burdens. When both individuals in a relationship are self-sufficient, their connection becomes one of mutual respect rather than dependency. Another crucial realization is that people often appear to care more than they actually do. Social norms dictate that when someone shares their struggles, the appropriate response is to express sympathy. However, in many cases, this concern is surface level, lasting only as long as the conversation. Once the discussion ends, most people return to their own lives, and the problem that seems significant to one person is barely an afterthought. True peace is not found in the approval, presence, or validation of others, but in the ability to stand independently without needing constant reassurance from social circles. Many people mistakenly believe that their happiness depends on their relationships, friendships, and external interactions, but the reality is that true contentment comes from within. Those who develop self-sufficiency do not fear solitude, nor do they feel incomplete without constant social engagement. Relying too much on social circles for emotional stability creates a fragile sense of peace. The problem with basing happiness on external relationships is that they are unpredictable. Friends come and go, relationships change, and people are often too consumed with their own lives to be a constant source of support. When a person builds their sense of security on these ever-changing factors, they leave themselves vulnerable to disappointment and instability. Self-sufficiency does not mean rejecting social interactions, but rather ensuring that one's inner world remains stable regardless of external circumstance. A person who is emotionally independent does not crumble when friends drift away, when relationships shift, or when moments of solitude arise. Instead, they view these experiences as natural parts of life rather than as personal failures or sources of distress. One of the biggest reasons people struggle with loneliness is that they have never learned to be alone without feeling isolated. They mistake solitude for emptiness, assuming that peace can only be found in the company of others. However, true peace comes from being comfortable with one's own thoughts, learning to enjoy one's own company, and finding fulfillment in activities that do not require social validation. Self-sufficiency allows a person to develop a stronger sense of identity. When people constantly seek approval from social circles, they often adjust their personalities, opinions, and behaviors to fit in. Over time, this leads to a weakened sense of self, where personal values and beliefs are compromised for the sake of belonging. A self-sufficient individual, on the other hand, is not swayed by external expectations, but remains grounded in their own convictions. Another advantage of self-sufficiency is emotional resilience. When people depend on others to provide comfort, encouragement, or reassurance, they become vulnerable to instability whenever those sources are unavailable. But when an individual cultivates inner strength, they are able to handle challenges with clarity and determination without feeling lost or abandoned when others are not around to provide support. Self-sufficient individuals also experience a deeper level of personal growth. Those who constantly seek distractions through social interactions often avoid confronting their own thoughts, emotions, and weaknesses. But when someone learns to be alone without discomfort, they gain a clearer understanding of their own desires, strengths, and areas that need improvement. This self-awareness leads to greater wisdom and personal evolution. One of the most liberating aspects of self-sufficiency is freedom from social pressures. Many people spend their lives worrying about how they are perceived, seeking approval, and trying to maintain relationships that may not even be fulfilling. When a person is truly at peace with themselves, they are no longer controlled by these anxieties. They interact with others because they choose to, not because they feel obligated or afraid of being alone. True peace comes from knowing that happiness is not dependent on external circumstances. Social circles can provide joy, but they should not be the foundation of one's well-being. People who are self-sufficient find contentment in their own pursuits, whether that be through learning, creating, reflecting, or simply existing in a state of acceptance. They do not need constant validation or companionship to feel whole. A major misconception is that self-sufficiency leads to isolation, but the opposite is often true. When people no longer depend on others for happiness, they form healthier, more balanced relationships. They engage with others out of genuine interest rather than neediness, which makes their interactions more meaningful. They are not seeking to fill a void, but to share their completeness with those around them. People who achieve true peace through self-sufficiency also experience less disappointment. Because they do not place unrealistic expectations on others, they are less likely to feel let down by social relationships. They do not demand constant attention, approval, or emotional support, and as a result, they navigate life with a sense of calm, knowing that their stability comes from within, not from the unpredictable nature of human interactions. Self-sufficiency cultivates a stronger sense of purpose. Instead of constantly chasing after social engagements or worrying about maintaining friendships, a person who is comfortable with themselves can focus on what truly matters. They have the time, energy, and clarity to pursue meaningful goals, develop new skills, and create a life that is fulfilling on their own terms rather than being dictated by external expectations. The ability to be at peace without relying on social circles leads to greater emotional balance. People who depend on others for validation often experience extreme emotional highs and lows, fluctuating between happiness when they feel accepted and despair when they feel ignored. But when peace comes from within, emotions become more stable and external events hold less power over one's well-being. Those who cultivate self-sufficiency also develop a deeper appreciation for relationships. When someone no longer depends on social circles to feel whole, they begin to value interactions for what they are, rather than as a means to escape loneliness. They enjoy conversations without expecting anything in return, form friendships based on genuine connection rather than necessity, and appreciate the presence of others without fear of losing them. True peace is achieved when a person realizes that they alone are responsible for their own happiness. The world is unpredictable, relationships change, and people are often too preoccupied with their own struggles to provide constant support. But when a person builds their inner world in a way that is stable, fulfilling, and independent of social validation, they gain a level of freedom, clarity, and strength that cannot be shaken by the ups and downs of life.